Bonds in news. India's first euro-denominated green bond. Recently, Power Finance Corporation Limited, lending NBFC in power sector, issued India's first 300 million 7-year euro green bond. In green bonds, the money raised by the issuer are marked towards financing green projects such as renewable energy, clean transportation, etc. Started by development banks like European Investment Bank and World Bank in 2007, the first evergreen bond of India was launched by Yes Bank in 2015. So now Power Finance Corporation Limited has issued India's first 300 million 7-year euro green bond. The green bonds are money for used for money raised financing green projects such as renewable energy, clean transportation, etc. And started by development banks such as European Investment Bank and World Bank in 2007. The first ever green bond of India was launched by Yes Bank in 2015. Floating rate funds. Floating rate funds are those funds who buy bonds with changing interest rates according to the changing rates of the economy. Seen huge inflows in recent months due to expectations in rise of interest rate. Floating rates insulate investors from losses due to rate hikes, because here the bond interest rate changes according to the changing rates of economy. Therefore, it insulates the investors from losses due to rate hikes. According to SEBI rules, 65% of the cost of the corpus of the floating rate funds must be invested in floating rate instrument. 65% of the corpus of the floating rate fund অবশ্যই ইনভেস্ট করতে হবে in floating rate instrument. Social impact bond. Social impact bond is a contract with public sector or governing authority whereby it pays for better social outcomes in certain areas and passes on part of saving achieved to investors. It is a contract with public sector or government authority whereby it pays for better social outcomes in certain areas and passes on part of savings achieved to the investors. SIB is not a bond, since repayment and return of investment depend on achievement on desired social outcomes. If objectives are not achieved, investors receive neither a return nor any repayment of principal. It is also known as pay for success contracts. The Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation in Maharashtra's Pune district signed a MOU with United Nations Development Program or UNDP or India to create India's first social impact bond. Things to remember: first is SIB is a contract with public sector or government authority whereby it pays for better social outcomes and passes on part of the savings achieved to the investor. It is not a bond per se, but also work as pay for success contract. That means if objectives are not achieved, investors receive neither a return nor repayment of principal. It is India's first social impact bond is been signed by is now in action, because it has there an MOU has been signed by the Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation of Maharashtra's Pune district and the United Nations Development Program for this social impact bonds or SIP. Inflation index bonds. Amid hardening inflation, RBI asked financial institutions to sense the possible demand for IIB or inflation index bonds. Globally, IIBs were first issued in UK 1981. In India, RIB issued IIBs linked to WPI in 2013. IIB provides the investor a constant return irrespective of the level of inflation in the economy. What it provides the investor a constant return irrespective of the level of inflation in the economy. The main objective of the inflation index bond is to provide a hedge and to safeguard the investor against macroeconomic risk in an economy. Main objective of inflation index bond is to provide a hedge and to safeguard the investor against macroeconomic risk in an economy. Inflation index used in IIBs may be WPI or CPI. তো এটাও একটা hedge দেয়, একটা safeguard দেয়, because the rate is always linked with the level of inflation in the country. Floating rate fund is almost same, কিন্তু RBI এর রোল এখানে আসছে না. এটা buy bonds with changing interest rate according to the changing rates of the economy. Seen huge inflows of recent month. কেন? কারণ expectation of rise in interest rate, floating rates insulate investor from losses due to rate hikes. এটা সেবি রুল এখানে কাজ করছে। ইনফ্লেশন ইনডেক্স বন্ডস এর ক্ষেত্রে আরবিআই রোল ইজ বিকামিং more and more important. Developments in relation to the stock exchanges. NSE Prime. NSE has launched NSE Prime as a new corporate governance initiative. NSE Prime is a framework that prescribes higher standard of corporate governance for listed companies than those required by regulations. NSE Prime is a framework that prescribes higher standards of corporate governance for listed companies. যে listed company আছে তাদের জন্য it will prescribe higher standards of corporate governance. What are the benefits? Raise the bar for corporate governance, enables investor to identify companies that has voluntarily signed up for higher standards, broaden the quality of the investors. NSE Shine Bullion blockchain platform. First of India, the NSE Shine is a blockchain platform for gold bullion launched by National Stock Exchange with chain flux in support of India Gold Policy Center and Indian Bullions and Jewelers Associations. The platform will provide a data framework for bullion bar integrity for settlement of gold derived contracts, gold derivative contracts. It will also help in ensuring data security, data integrity, and data traceability for each bullion bar ID at any point of time. Let us quickly check what is a bullion bar. My net has become too slow. Anyway, yeah. GAREX, GUAREX, National Commodity and Derivative Exchange Limited. NCDEX launched Agri Index features contract GOREX. GOREX is a price-based index tracking the price movement in future contracts of its underlying, that is guar seed and guar gum rectified spirits on a real-time basis. It is India's first sectoral index in agri commodities basket. India is the world's largest guar producer, according to the accounting for 85% of world's output. Rajasthan is country's top producer. NCDEX is leading agriculture commodity exchange in India. NCDEX is National Commodity and Derivative Exchange Limited. Guar is a kind of cluster known as cluster bean. Let me make a comment here. I'll have some issue. And guar gum is a resin isolated from that, just a legume or cluster bean. Guar. Oh. is a legume or cluster bean. Fine. Anchor investor. Life Insurance Corporation of India or LIC is looking to raise up to rupees 2,525,000 crore from anchor investors. Who are anchor investors? Anchor investors are institutional investors who are invited to subscribe the share before the initial public offer. Initial public offer এর আগে anchor investor হচ্ছে কিছু ইনভেস্টর যারা ইন্টারেস্টেড টু সাবস্ক্রাইব দিস, তো তাদের শেয়ার করার জন্য they will let them they will call them and let them know what is happening. So these are known as anchor investors who are invested to subscribe their share before the initial public offer. Initial public offer এর থেকে আগে they will have the chance. Each anchor investor needs to invest a minimum of rupees 10 crore. Rupees 10 crore minimum invest করতে হবে. Anchor investors are essentially brought in to enhance the confidence of the investor and gauge the demand of the IPO for market. Enhance the confidence of the investor, because if someone is already investing in that, so that gives confidence to the investors and gauge the demand for the IPO in the market. Or IPO are the initial public offers. So initial public offers, এটা কি হয়? It helps the company to raise capital, enhance public image, to avail cheaper credits and to hire better employees, because there is an image created, so better employees will apply for this, and it helps the country how emerge as a vibrant emerging economy, access additional funding, improve overall corporate governance, transparency and credibility, development of the financial market. These are general. So escrow account, this is important. Escrow account, recently Securities and Appellate Tribunal or SAT allowed National Stock Exchange to withdraw rupees 6,500 crore deposited by it as an escrow account. It is an account where funds or assets are held in trust by a third party whilst two or more parties complete a transaction. It is an account where funds or assets are held in trust by a third party whilst two or more parties complete transactions. It offers benefit like overcoming uncertainty on ability to meet obligation and facilitating custody of cash, security and other collaterals based on the transaction types. So escrow account is an account where funds or assets are held in trust by a third party whilst two or more parties complete a transaction. The third party account where funds are kept before they are transferred to the ultimate party. It provides security against scam and frauds, especially with high asset value and dispute-prone sectors such as real estate. Escrow-based payments have been around for years and not new. So it is an both the client and beneficiary should collectively submit a request or application letter. It is an contractual agreement in which a third party receives and disburses money or property for the primary transaction parties, whereas the disbursement dependent on the conditions agreed to by the transacting parties. So in simple words, an escrow account is a third party account where the funds are kept before they are transferred to the ultimate party. It provides security against scams and frauds, especially with high asset value and dispute prone sectors like real estate. Escrow-based payments has been around for years and they are not new. তো দুটোর পার্টির মাঝখানে একটা মিনিমাম কোন একটা থার্ড পার্টি ইজ নোন অ্যাজ দ্য এসক্রো অ্যাকাউন্ট, যেখানে ফান্ড প্রথমে যায় এবং সেখান থেকে the third party will now disburse the fund. Key components and information on payment system and financial markets. কিছু key components: stagflation, that is of course economic situation where inflation rate is high, economic growth rate slows and unemployment remains steadily high. It creates a dilemma for government because most action are designed to lower inflation, but it also raise unemployment level, and policies designed to decrease unemployment may worsen the inflation. So দুটো issue, inflation rate high and unemployment rate is also steadily higher, but it is generally believed that unemployment is low where inflation is high. So therefore it creates a dilemma for the government that what to target, whether to target the inflation rate or what to target the unemployment. Legal entity identifier or LEI. Recently RBI made the legal entity identifier mandatory for cross-border transaction for capital or current account worth ₹50 crore or above 50 কোটি বা তার থেকে বেশি অ্যাকাউন্টে যদি cross border transaction হয়, then RBI made the LEI mandatory. It is a what is LEI or legal entity identifier? It is a 20 character alphanumeric code based on ISO 17444 standard from the International Organization of Standardization or ISO mark হচ্ছে 20 character alphanumeric code. It is used to uniquely identify parties to financial transactions worldwide, improving the quality and accuracy of the financial data reporting system for better risk management. It is used to uniquely identify parties to financial transactions worldwide, improving the quality and the accuracy of the financial data reporting system for better risk management. Its issuance and use is regulated by Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation. Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation, GLEIF, established by Financial Stability Board in 2014. Legal Entity Identifier, LEI. Is a 20-digit number used for uniquely identify parties to financial transactions worldwide. আর RBI এর ক্ষেত্রে কোথায় ম্যান্ডেটরি করেছে যে 50 crore এর বেশি inter border cross border transaction. 20 RBI has a large volume transactions in centralized payment system to improve the quality. 50 crore এর বেশি run by RBI run centralized payment system in RTGS or NEFT. LEI can be obtained from legal identity identifier. Fine. এর থেকে বেশি কিছু নেই, একটা আলফানিউমেরিক কোড দেওয়া হয় যেটা ইউনিকলি আইডেন্টিফাই করে যে পার্টিকে যারা ফিনান্সিয়াল ট্রানজাকশনে ওয়ার্ল্ড ওয়াইড ইনভলভ আছে। Equalization levy. Equalization levy is by its definition a levy to equalize the tax component of a resident e-commerce company as well as a non-resident e-commerce company. India introduced Equalization Levy 2.0 in Finance Act 2020. Equalization levy. Equalization levy is aimed at taxing the foreign companies. Recently, central government equalization levy is aimed at taxing foreign companies which have a significant local client base in India, but are billing them through their offshore units, especially escaping the country's tax system. This system has come in the backdrop of United States state representative investigations into tax adopted under consideration by 10 nations on revenue in American digital service companies such as Netflix, Airbnb, etc. What is the background? Equalization levy at 6% has been enforced in 2016 on payment exceeding rupees 1 lakh per year to a non-resident service provider for online advertisement. It was already there. Already 6% tax দিতে হতো যখন পেমেন্টটা এক্সিড করতো 1 lakh rupees a year for a non-resident service provider. It is now applicable for e-commerce companies without having tangible presence in the country. Equalization levy includes online sales of goods, provision of service with the levy of rate of 2% effective in 1. Change in Challan. The Income Tax Department has modified Challan ITNS 285 to enable payment of the first installment by non-resident e-commerce operator. The Challan also seeks mandatory PAN, provides for outside India. The non-resident can less the payment, late payment attract interest of rupees 1%. আচ্ছা, এখানে কিছু আমার ইনক্লুড করার আছে। That this is of a 6% equalization levy. 6%. If more than 1 lakh per year for non-resident service providing company. এখন এটা ই-কমার্স যারা তাদের জন্য হয়েছে ফর 2% রেটে লেট পেমেন্টে চার্জ আছে। আর এখানে হচ্ছে ওয়েবসাইট such as Amazon, Google in particular এদের জন্য এগুলো applicable as the tax applies on advertised revenue earned overseas if those ads target customers in India. আর হচ্ছে এর জন্য ইনকাম ট্যাক্স চালান 285 I 285 ITNS has been modified. Income tax চালান 285 ITNS modify করা হয়েছে. That is extra. Extra is United States Trade Representatives USTR একটা investigation চালিয়েছিল into taxes adopted or under consideration by 10 nations including India. তো এখানে মোটামুটি 6% যেটা হচ্ছে 1L per year for non-resident service providing company আর এখন নতুন ই-কমার্সে হয়েছে. Okay, financial stability report. It is a biannual report reflects the financial stability and resilience of the financial system. Who releases this? Financial stability report is published biannually, reflects the collective. So this is actually RBI released it. RBI released, and this is the 23rd issue, and which is biannual. 2 বছরে একবার করে বের হয়. Financial stability. The FSR, which is published biannually, reflect the collective assessments of subcommittees of Financial Stability and Developmental Council, which is headed by the Governor of RBI. Financial Stability and Developmental Council. This is headed by Governor of RBI. The report also discusses issues relating to development and regulation. What are the key points? A capital buffer is required, dented economic activity, but monetary, regulatory, and financial measures help curtail the solvency risks. Global recovery, new risks are there, cyber attacks and pandemic. Gross GNPA is 11.2%. GNPA's গ্রস ডোমেস্টিক এখানে আর কিছু সেরকম নেই. এখানে দুটো জিনিস আছে, গ্রস এনপিএ হচ্ছে 11.2% আর সিআরএআর হচ্ছে 16.03%. So this is the financial stability report is a biannual report published by RBI, Financial Stability and Developmental Corporation, headed by Governor of RBI, and gross NPA is okay. This is fine. Next, wholesale price index, এটা তো জানি, released by Office of Economic Advisor, Department of Promotion and Industry and Internal Trade. WPI measure average changes in the price of commodities for the bulk sale as the level of entry early stage of the transactions. The commodities covered under it are divided into 3 major groups: primary articles, fuel and power, and manufactured product. The prices tracked as X factory price for manufactured product, agri market, mandi, and X. The prices tracked are X factory price for manufactured product, agri market or mandi price for agriculture commodities, and X mines prices for minerals. Weights given to each commodity covered are based on the value of the production adjusted for net imports. Production value of production adjusted for net imports. Adjusted for net imports. WPI basket do not cover services. এটা মনে রাখতে হবে যে WPS don't cover services. The base year of All India WPI has been raised from 2005-06 to 2011-12. এখানে ইন্টারেস্ট হচ্ছে released by Office of Economic Advisor, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Office of Economic Advisor, Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, they release this index. Network for greening the financial system. RBI joined the network for greening the financial system as a member. RBI has joined, launched at the Paris One Planet Summit in 2017. NGFS, Network for Greening the Financial Services, Green Finance Companies, is a group of central bank and supervisors willing to share best practices to mobilize mainstream finances to support the transition towards a sustainable economy. RBI joined NGFS, Network for Greening the Financial System. এটা শুনতে এনভায়রনমেন্টের লাগলেও মনে রাখতে হবে যে RBI has joined. Fine. Scores Portal, SCORES. Scores is an online platform designed to help investors to lodge their complaints with SEBI against listed companies and intermediaries. যদি কোনো investor SEBI কে complaint জানাতে চায় against listed companies and intermediaries, they have to go through the Scores Portal. Variable Capital Company or VCC. Recently, the KP Krishnan Committee, এটা একটা important term লাগছে আমার. Recently, the KP Krishnan Committee on Feasibility of Variable Capital Company for Fund Management in the International Financial Services Center recommended it VCC's adoption as vehicle by IFSCA. VCC ki Variable Capital Company. VCCs are alternative form of corporate vehicle for companies, unit trust and LLPs which can be set up as a standalone fund or an umbrella fund with multiple sub-funds. It can help in building the overall financial service ecosystem as it dispenses with some of the key limitation of companies and LLPs with higher regulatory standards. Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, PFRDA. Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority has registered over 23% jump in the subscriber base. তাহলে subscriber base 23% jump হয়েছে into two flagship schemes in the end of PFRDA. Headquarters is in Delhi, was established in 2003 through the Government of India resolution to promote, develop and regulation the pension sector. It has become a statutory body through this PFRDA Act passed by 2013 and notified in 2015. It regulates the NPS and any other pension schemes not regulated by any other enactment. So basically, এটা একটা statutory body, এটুকু মনে রাখতে হবে that this is a statutory body. Fine. Just 38 pages. Okay. External sector. India's export. Why it is in news? Recently, India's quarterly exports scored 100 billion mark for the first time as a result of sector-specific intervention taken by government during the COVID crisis. More on exports, government has set merchandise export target. Government target হচ্ছে of 400 billion for the year 2021 and overall export target of ₹1 trillion export by 2027. $1 trillion export target by 2027. So there are 4-point strategy. These are general strategies. Increasing quality competent manufacturing, center and state sort out logistic problems, strengthening coordination between exporter and government, and finding more global markets. What are the export growth can be encouraged by promoting ease of doing business, augmenting competitiveness of MSME, robust foreign trade policy, diversion of export basket, research and development. So these are generic terms. I don't have to give much details. So now look for the trade in the India's overall trade. Indian overall export in 2019 was US 526 billion as against 538. একটু কমেছে. Share in world export has increased from 0.6% in 1991 to 7.1% in 2018, but remains paltry compared to China's 13%. This is important. Wait. So India's export basket কি বলছে? India's export basket বলছে India's share in world export সেটা হচ্ছে only 1.7%, যেখানে চায়নার হচ্ছে 13% and US হচ্ছে 9%. So this is the difference. যেখানে India's export basket is only 1.7%, সেখানে চায়নার হচ্ছে 13% and US এর হচ্ছে 9%. India ranked 18th on the list of top exporting countries worldwide in 2019. As percentage of GDP, India's exports are about 18% of GDP. India's service trade has been a major driver for its export due to high growth and service trade surplus আছে. ট্রেড সারপ্লাস হয় সার্ভিস সেক্টরের জন্য, and has been financing almost 50% of India's mercantile trade deficit. Mercantile trade deficit ইন্ডিয়ার যা হয় সেটা সার্ভিস সেক্টরে আর স্টেট সারপ্লাস দিয়ে তার 50% অব্দি ব্যালেন্স হয়। Initiative, what are the initiatives যে India reached a record $100 billion mark for the first time? So initiatives from Department of Commerce to boost India's export in the COVID, extension of import validity period and export obligation period in advance authorization, এরকম কিছু নেই এখানে। What are the adoption of technical regulation, quality control, fast track mechanism, delivering district as developing district as export hub, এগুলো সবকটাই মোটামুটি মেন্সের পয়েন্ট, নাথিং ফর প্রিলিমস। Reason for India's underperformance, global value chain a low level, limited export basket diversification, as top 10 principal export account for 78 terms. Low competitiveness, lackluster infrastructure, complex level loss, regional disparities. 70% India's exports are dominated by 5 states: Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana. So this is a very important point to be noted. Regional disparities is there. India faces three fundamental challenges: intra-regional disparities in export infrastructure, where coastal states performing extremely well compared to landlocked states. So all the coastal states, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, they are performing well, but the landlocked states are still laid back in terms of export promotion. Poor trade support and growth orientation among states. Poor research and development infrastructure to promote complex and unique export, curbing the innovative tendencies. Inability to exploit the competitive advantage in lower scaled and labor intensive exports, such as in textile, garments, and footwear. India's share being taken by Bangladesh and Vietnam. Lower skilled and labor intensive export Bangladesh and Vietnam, যেমন textile is a major effect. Share of 5 top commodities in India's export. সব থেকে আগে হচ্ছে petroleum products, pearl, precious, semi-precious stones, drug formulations, gold and other jewelries, iron and steel. Top 5 export destination, সবার আগে থাকবে হচ্ছে United States of America and then UAE. China is the third. United States of America, UAE, China, Hong Kong, Singapore. These are the top 5 destinations. এগুলো economic service report. Recent initiatives to boost export. India Exports Initiative to increase MSME export by 50% using an info portal as a knowledge base, contributing nearly 40% of India's export. Capital infusion, NIRVIC scheme to provide high insurance cover. PLI is provided in 13 high potential sectors. Export Preparedness Index or EPI from NITI Aayog to highlight export potential of each state. NITI Aayog's Export Preparedness Index. Draft National Logistic Policy to create a single window e-logistic that will cut the logistic from presently 13 to 14% to at least 10% of GDP. Continuation of National Export Insurance Scheme. NEI Trust to promote India's first international maritime service cluster. Gujarat Maritime Board will set FAST IMSC in the GIFT City. GIFT City is the India's only approved international financial service center. International Financial Service Center. It will be developed as a dedicated ecosystem, equalization scheme and exporter. And this is fine. Exporter get a subsidy range. The bank provide credits at lower interest rate to the exporter and late reimbursed, and schemes are available to MSME. Fine. আচ্ছা, এবার আছে WTO related developments, agreement of agriculture. This is actually important concept. I just wanted to know. Agreement on agriculture. Recently, Ministry of Commerce and Industry stated that WTO, World Trade Organization agreement on agriculture is tilted against the developing countries. What is agreement on agriculture? It provides a framework for the long-term reform of agricultural trade of domestic policy. Achha. This is coming in force into 1995. It covers the market access, the use of trade restrictions, domestic support, subsidies, export competition. Under this agreement, WTO members agree to schedules or list the commodities that set limit on tariffs they can apply to individual products and on level of domestic support or export prices. কি কি আছে? So like in few cases, the green box, these measures are exempted from the reduction commitment and indeed can ever be increased without any financial limitation. Applies to both developing and developing country members, but in case of developing countries, special treatment is provided in respect of governmental stockholding programs for food security purposes and subsidized food prices. India's PDS doesn't comes under green box. তো এদের কিছু রেস্ট্রিকশনস আছে যেটার জন্য প্রবলেম হয়। গভর্নমেন্ট স্টক হোল্ডিং প্রোগ্রাম এর মধ্যে থেকে আসে না। India's PDS doesn't come under green box. Amber box, all domestic support measures considered to distort production and trade fall into the amber box. For instance, MSP, procurement price, sum total of subsidies, inputs like fertilizer, water, credit, power, এগুলো হচ্ছে অ্যাম্বার বক্সের মধ্যে আছে। অল ডোমেস্টিক সাপোর্ট মেজার্স, যেগুলো ডোমেস্টিক সাপোর্ট মেজার যারা ডিস্টর্ট প্রোডাকশন অ্যান্ড ট্রেড। Blue box, these are basically amber box subsidies where they tend to limit the production. Any support that will normally be in the amber box is placed in the blue box if the support also requires farmers to limit their production. Their measures are also exempted from reduction content. Special and differential treatment box, it comprises of investment subsidies like tractors and pump sets, agriculture input service like fertilizer to farmers, etc. STD box, subsidies can be given by only developing and low developing countries. Special and differential treatment box, green box, amber box, and blue box. So what is the issue? Now, agreement on agriculture, Uruguay round launched in 1983 and signed in 1994 at Morocco, and WTO created at Geneva. WTO created at Geneva. Uruguay round, it is launched in Uruguay round, signed in Marrakesh in 1994. Acha, AOA was signed by WTO members with specific commitment to reduce support and protection in the areas of domestic support, export subsidies, and market access. It also takes an account non-trade concerns, including food security. Special agricultural safeguard was provided for developing countries under which they can impose an additional duty in case of import surge. Uruguay round also created certain categories. De minimis, what is de minimis? Minimal amount of domestic support that are allowed even if they distort trade, up to 5% of the value of production for developed and 10% for developing. So this is the de minimis. Okay, this is the de minimis. Next, there is a peace clause which provides protection to domestic support measure and export subsidies of a WTO member from challenge other WTO. Peace clause expired on January 1, 2004. Another temporary peace clause was made into WTO Bali conference until 2017. It stipulated that no country will be legally barred from food security programs for its own people, even if the subsidy breaches the limit for WTO AOA. And yeah, no country will be legally barred if they do the food security program, of course, to support their own people. Then what happened in Doha round? 2013 Bali Ministerial Conference, signing on trade facilitation agreement and launch on various agricultural agreements such as permanent solution to expand the green box leaks of general services, declaration to reduce all forms of export subsidies, and a temporary peace clause. 2015 Nairobi package, decision to eliminate agricultural export subsidies and set disciplines on export measure with equivalent effect as WTO members agreed to engage constructively in finding a permanent solution for developing countries' use of public stockholding programs. Ministers are also agreed to continue negotiation on a special safeguard mechanism. Developing countries' concerns. Concern ta ki niye ei problem. Urgently reach a permanent and workable solution to dispute over public stockholding of food grain for food securitization with no penalization for breaching any limit, of course, because definitely the developing countries are more need of a food security program such as India's PDS system. Include all forms of export subsidization in export subsidy, as despite high farm subsidies from developed countries, many are excluded in export subsidies. Use of sanitary and phytosanitary measures and technical barriers to selectively wards off or deny market access to developing countries. ম্যাক্সিমাম ক্ষেত্রে কি হয় যে এক্সপোর্টের ক্ষেত্রে যদি ডেভেলপিং মার্কেটের প্রোডাক্ট থাকে তাহলে ওরা এই এসপিএস এর রিজন দেখিয়ে কিছু টেকনিক্যাল ব্যারিয়ার ক্রিয়েট করে যে বিকজ your product do not competent enough or your products are not complying with the rules or the standard procedures there, so therefore we cannot give subsidy for that. So that is the basic problem that is I mean talking about for a long time by the developing country members. And this is a very important topic, agreement on agriculture. It is a framework for the long-term reform of agricultural trade and domestic policies.